Let me write a simple Python program to connect Python with a MySQL. Before writing the program, let us revisit MySQL. So when you open MySQL, first you need to enter the password. The password is Nava, N-A-V-A. You can see the version of MySQL installed. The default database is MySQL. If you want to see all the databases available, you can type the SQL statement show databases. So you can see all the databases available. Now, suppose if you want to create a database by the name class 12, you can write the SQL statement create a database class 12. Now, if I make use of show databases, you can see the newly created database class 12. Now, in order to use this database, you should make use of the command use class 12. So, from the default database MySQL, you have moved to class 12. If you want to see all the tables present in class 12, you can write the code show tables. Okay, so I did not create any tables inside class 12. These many statements let me execute by making use of Python. So I am going to drop this database and it will be created using Python. So drop database class 12. Now if I make use of show databases, you can see there is no database by the name class 12. I am going to create a database by the name class 12 using Python, and I will move to class 12 database. Okay, so in order to connect Python with MySQL, there is a function by the name connect. Now, this function is present in the module mysql.connector. So it should be called as mysql.connector. Certainly, you need to import this module. So let me do that. Import mysql.connector. Okay. Now, the connect function takes 3 arguments. So you can put 2, comma. 3 arguments are there. The first argument can be written here, second argument here, the third argument here. The first argument, the computer where you installed MySQL server. So here the MySQL server is installed in this computer. How can you inform Python about that? You can inform like this: host equals localhost, meaning MySQL server is installed in this computer. The second argument is the username and the third argument is the password. So let me write the username in the next line. So backward slash, meaning you can continue with the statement here. Okay, so let me write the username. User equals the default one, root, and password, let me write it in the next line, backward slash, so that you can continue. Password equals the one that you gave Nava while installing the MySQL software server. Now let variable connection point to this connection. Okay, so I created a connection object and a connection between Python and MySQL successfully established. Now after that, in order to execute SQL statements, you need to create a cursor object. So in order to create a cursor, there is a function by the name cursor, C-U-R-S-O-R. Now this function is a function of the connection object. So it should be called as connection variable dot cursor. And This you can store in a variable, say for example cursor. Okay, so you have created a cursor object and the variable cur points to the cursor object. Now in order to execute an SQL statement, there is a function by the name execute. Now this function is a function of the cursor object, so it should be called as cur.execute. Okay, and the statement that you want to execute should be passed as a string. So what I am going to do is, let me create a string variable strsql equals maybe show databases. So this is the SQL statement that I want to execute. Okay, so this variable points to the string and the string is nothing but an SQL statement. So here you can mention that if you want you can put a semicolon. Now this string variable you can mention here, right click, paste. Now this one will execute this statement and it is stored in the computer's memory. The name of all the databases available that is stored in the computer's memory. If you want to fetch the names of all the databases, you can use it is cursor object dot fetch all. There is a function by the name fetch all. So this function returns all the rows in the computer's memory. So execute statement will execute this statement. All the databases name are saved in the clipboard area or the memory, and fetch all will retrieve all the names from the memory. You can store that in a variable R. So R contains all the rows and R may be displayed in the computer's monitor. So you can display like this. Now save your file, run the program. Yeah. So these are the databases available in MySQL. There is a database by the name information schema. There is a default database MySQL. There is another database by the name performance schema, and the last one test. So you can see that rows are retrieved as a list. So it is a list of tuples. Okay, so each and every element of the list is a tuple, and the tuple consists of only one element. That's the reason why the name of the database is given in single quotes followed by a comma. This is part of the syntax. I told you, if the tuple contains only one element, insert the element followed by comma. So answer is returned as a list of tuples. Each and every element of the list is a tuple. Okay. Now, using the program, we know that the database class 12 is not there. Okay. So using the program, I am going to check whether the database class 12 is there in the list or not. How can you do that? Like this. If database class 12 is there in this list, okay, so each and every element is a tuple. So if you want to check for a database name, it should be made a tuple. The name of the database is a string, so class 12. And if the tuple contains only one element, put a comma. So this is the tuple class 12. So I want to check whether the database class 12 or the tuple class 12 is present in this list or not. Okay, so if class 12 in R, if it is present, you can display the message class 12 present. Class 12 present. Otherwise, you can display the message class 12 has been successfully created. Okay, class 12 has been successfully created. Actually, I did not create one, isn't it? So in order to create the database class 12. Let me execute another SQL statement. So in order to execute SQL statement, what's the method? There is a function by the name execute. Now this function is present in the cursor object. Okay, so it should be called as cursor.execute. The statement that you want to execute should be passed as an argument. So let me store that in a variable. So str SQL equals create database class 12 semicolon. So this SQL statement you can execute here. Okay, so now a database by the name class 12 created, and in this case database class 12 is already present. Now after that, from the default database, you should move to the database class 12. So how can you move? Again, you have to execute an SQL statement. So how do you execute an SQL statement? Call the function execute. But this function is present in the cursor object. So it should be called as cur.execute. The SQL statement should be passed as an argument. So first, let me store it in a variable str_sql equals, how can you move to class 12? Use class 12, and here you can mention str_sql. Now if you want to see all the tables present in class 12, actually no tables are there, we did not create any table. So if you want to see all the tables, show tables. Okay, so I'm going to execute one more statement. How do you execute? Use the function execute. Now it is present in the cursor object cur dot. The SQL statement that you want to execute should be passed as an argument. So show tables, and here you can pass the SQL statement. So this will execute the SQL statement. The answer is there in the memory, computer's memory. So how can you retrieve the answer from the memory? There is a function by the name fetch all. Fetch all. But this is a function of the cursor object. So it should be called as cur.fetch all. Now the answer you can store in a variable r, and variable r is nothing but a list of tuples, and the list contains each and every element. Each and every element is a tuple, and tuple consists of the various table names. Okay, so now r is empty because no tables are there. So if you want, you can check for a condition. If r equal to empty, print tables are not there. Tables are not there. Else you can write different tables are present. Different tables are present. They are given below. Okay. They are given below, and you can display them. How do you display? Print R. So here we get the answer, tables are not present because we did not create any table. Now save your file. You can run the program. So just make a note of this one. First, show databases. All the databases displayed in the computer's monitor. Then it will check whether a database by the name class 12 is present or not. So it is not present. We know that. So here the message comes, class 12 has been successfully created. Using this statement, the database class 12 successfully created. Now you can make use of class 12. So this SQL statement executed here, show tables. There are no tables. So you get the answer, tables are not there. So run the program, F5. So you can see first the names of all the databases displayed. See this one here. Show databases. Here the SQL statement is executed. Fetch all. will retrieve all the rows that is stored in variable R, and here the names of all the databases displayed. Now after that, here class 12 has been successfully created. So you can see that the list of database names does not contain a database by the name class 12. So what happens? Class 12 in R, no, it is not there. So control comes to else part. Here you get the message class 12 has been successfully created, and using this statement, when you execute this statement, the class 12 database created. Now use class 12. You can see tables are not there because the database class 12 is empty, so tables are not there. So R is empty, no tables, so tables are not there. This message displayed in the computer's monitor. So this is a very simple Python program that demonstrates connectivity. So kindly make a note of the important points. One, first you need to establish a connection between Python and MySQL. So in order to establish connection, there is a function by the name connect. Three arguments are there. One, host. What's the meaning of host? The computer where the MySQL server is installed. So here it is installed in your local host in your computer. The username, by default it is root, and password, the password that you entered by installing MySQL server. Now the connection variable points to this connection. In order to execute SQL statements, you need to create a cursor. There is a function by the name cursor. It is a function of the connection object. So it should be called as connection.cursor, and the variable cursor points to the cursor. To execute an SQL statement, there is a function by the name execute. This is a function of the cursor object. So it should be called as cursor.execute, and the SQL statement should be passed as an argument. Now, after executing the SQL statement, the result is stored in the computer's memory. That area of memory is known as clipboard area. Okay, it is not known by the name clipboard area, it is context area. Anyway, it is stored in the computer's memory, and in order to retrieve all the results, there is a function by the name fetch all. So this will retrieve all the answer from the memory area. It is retrieved as a list of tuples. This is a function of the cursor object, so it should be called as cursor.fetchAll. Variable R contains all the answers, list of tuple, and that can be displayed in the computer's monitor.